Welcome to presentation on Who Can Create Money by PJ Finance Show.
Hello there. Does anyone know who can create money?
We think is the central bank.
Probably the government.
Well, maybe yes. Or maybe not the only one. Let's follow the footsteps of the presentation from the Joe and Phoebe Money Show, to find out who can create money. Let's meet Joe. Our story starts with Joe getting $100,000 when he sold his bonds. After that, Joe puts this money into the Manhattan Bank. Here is the balance sheet of Manhattan Bank. As Joe walks into the bank and deposits his proceeds, bank's liability side goes up by $100,000 since this is the money that the bank owes Joe. The central bank requires the bank to keep 10% of its checkable deposits in reserves. Therefore, Manhattan Bank put aside $10,000 as required reserves. What can the bank do with the $90,000 excess reserves? The answer is that the bank can lend the $90,000 excess reserves out. So, Money 101. What is the required reserves? You can think of required reserves as money put aside in case the depositors like Joe wish to withdraw some money. Under normal conditions, it is unlikely that the depositors would withdraw 100% of their deposits, in this case, all $100,000. Therefore, required reserves at 10% is considered as a reasonable estimate of future withdrawal. Besides setting aside these required reserves, Manhattan Bank now has excess reserves of $90,000, which is free to lend out. As of now, bank can sit there and wait until a borrower comes in and asks for a loan. Phoebe walks into the Manhattan Bank and seeking for a loan. Manhattan Bank now can lend as much as they can, and the maximum amount they can lend is $90,000. Phoebe borrows $90,000, and the $90,000 appears as a loan on the assets side of the bank's balance sheet. Please note that the excess reserves become zero. Since she has not decided what to do with the money, she deposits the loan back into the bank. At this stage, when the loan was made, the money supply or M1 increased by $90,000. Here we see another account added to the bank's liability side while Phoebe deposits $90,000 back to the bank. Since the bank has to set aside 10% of $90,000, the bank sets aside $9,000 as required reserves, making the total required reserves of $19,000, $10,000 from Joe's account, and $9,000 from Phoebe's account. Note that the bank now has an additional $81,000 of excess reserves, which it can lend out. $90,000 new deposit minus 10% reserves. One good question to ask is, what and where is the impact on GDP? Answer: nothing yet. We have to wait until Phoebe goes out and spends the loan she borrowed. Phoebe decided to spend all the $90,000 at Top Arts. At this point, the consumption increases by $90,000. As GDP equals consumption, plus investment, plus government spending, plus net exports. GDP increases by $90,000. Key point. If a loan is taken out, nothing happens to GDP until the money is spent. Phoebe's deposit account is now zero and she still owes the $90,000 in loans. On the assets side, required reserves falling from $19,000 to $10,000. Note that the excess reserves now is zero, so where has the $81,000 excess reserves, loanable funds gone to? Here is the balance sheet for Bank of New Jersey. Suppose Top Arts deposits the $90,000 at Bank of New Jersey, the liability side will increase by $90,000. The bank will also put aside 10% of $90,000, which is equivalent to $9,000 as required reserves. The excess reserve is $81,000 and the Bank of New Jersey can now lend out the excess reserves. When a third person borrows the $81,000, we create another round of excess reserves. This loan creation cycle can continue for a while. From initially, Joe deposits $100,000, moving on to Phoebe and Top Arts. We can see the cycle of money being created. In the end, the initial $100,000 deposit would become $1 million. A 10 times increase. This also creates a new excess reserve of $900,000. In order to create money, it is essential for banks willing to lend and for people like Phoebe to borrow money. So, where is the central bank in this money creation? The central bank plays a role in money creation through 1. Changing the percentage for reserve requirement. A lower ratio of reserve requirement will lead to more excess reserves. 2. Buying bonds from bondholders like Joe in the financial markets or directly from the banks. So, what is the real money? One may argue that the $100,000 deposited by Joe is the real money and the $900,000 is the money created out of thin air. Let's play a game. Suppose Phoebe has 3 friends. A, B, and C. Instead of spending money at Top Arts, Phoebe buys $90,000 stocks of the S&P 500 index from A. As the market keeps rallying, S&P 500 index skyrocketed to new highs. Phoebe is very happy with this trade. Friend A uses the $90,000, trades on margin to buy $180,000 of Nasdaq index stocks from B. As the market keeps accelerating, Friend A is very happy with this trade and starts dreaming to become rich very soon. Friend B uses the $180,000, trades on margin to buy $360,000 of stocks of the S&P 500 index from C. C uses the $360,000, trades on margin to buy. Okay, you know the drill. We can see that the market keeps going up, 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 and away until. One would argue that the market will keep going up perhaps until the banks stop lending. Would this be possible? One would ask, does it matter what is real, and what is not real? As long as there is confidence in the market, one would argue that as long as banks are willing to lend, and as long as the market participants believe the value indicator by the stock market, then the money is real. A lot depends on confidence in the market and in the financial system. So, is this a bubble? Should you be worried about valuation? What do you guys think?
Thank you for watching this presentation Who Can Create Money. This presentation was brought to you by PJ Finance Show.